This behind me and behind the haze is Los Angeles city, and we are on the mountains just on the outskirts. We are here to start a special journey with some guests who have flown over from India to be with us for a sightseeing trip. We are going to be going to the Grand Canyon and then to Vegas and to Death Valley at the end. So let's say hi to the guests who've come all the way from India to be with us on this journey, and yes, they are the Taiguns, the Volkswagen Taiguns, all the way from Pune, made in India and going to be sightseeing in the west of the US of A. We began our journey from Pasadena, a northern suburb of Los Angeles, where the cars had been shipped all the way from India to be part of the World Car Awards LA Test Fest. These actually are the only two Volkswagen Taiguns on the roads outside of India. These are India spec versions and meant to have steering wheels, obviously for India, on the right side of the car. And for the US, this is the wrong side. Both the SUVs are top-of-the-line versions of the two lines that Volkswagen has on sale in India, the Dynamic line and the Performance line. The first being with the 1-litre TSI engine and the other with the 1.5-litre TSI Evo engine. While the Dynamic line SUV was wild cherry red with the engine mated to a 6-speed manual transmission, the Curcuma yellow Performance line had a 7-speed DSG gearbox. Our first destination was Las Vegas with the Taiguns. But instead of taking the straight freeway to the entertainment capital of the country, or Sin City as it is also known as, we headed to one of my favorite roads in the world, the Angeles CREST highway. And for once, we drove the entire length of this highway that crosses the Angeles National Forest. It is a mountain road with very little traffic and great surface, with speed limits that allow for spirited driving. And this is where I found out for the first time that the Taigun handles really well. It was a joy to drive on over the 100 kilometers of the Angeles CREST highway. In fact, a support vehicle which had an engine capacity of over 2.5 times that of the Taigun I was driving struggled to keep up on this tight, twisty road. As we made our way towards the glamour and lights of Sin City, emerging from an arid featureless countryside into an oasis of life, sounds and lights, the Taigun I felt would be like a hare caught in the headlights, but it made the transition to the American motorways with ease. And for once, I made extended use of the cruise control feature on the SUV over the next few days. Sin City is all about lights, and the Taigun fits it to an L with its LEDs and extended taillights. In fact, driving on the American highways, it was very easy to keep track of the other car, both from the front and the back, given its unmistakable signature of the DRLs, as well as the continuous taillight strip at the back. We left the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas behind, trading it for the sparsely populated roads, including parts of the famed Route 66, driving about 450 kilometers to one of nature's most magnificent creations, the Grand Canyon in the Grand Canyon National Park. We started our journey in Los Angeles and we've crossed Nevada and now we are in Arizona, of course, the home of the Grand Canyon. The Taiguns have been spectacular, as is the Grand Canyon. We've done over 1,000 kilometers. We've crossed 5,000 feet in altitude on the freeways of the US of A, and the journey continues. The handiwork of the Colorado River over the ages, this is a sight to behold each time one sees it. For me, being a fan of the air crash investigation series, One of the highlights was at the east entrance, through which we exited the Grand Canyon National Park. There's a National Historic Landmark plaque at the site of the then deadliest air crash in the world when a TWA and a United plane crashed in midair. A solemn reminder in the middle of immense natural beauty. We left the Grand Canyon National Park through the east entrance and found another very beautiful landscape and trails leading down to and overlooking the Little Colorado River. Following a late arrival back into Las Vegas, we set off next morning in the Made in India Volkswagen Taiguns towards Death Valley National Park. Actually, I had to thank the wireless Apple CarPlay for making it to Death Valley because the USB ports were needed to charge camera and batteries, and I was left bereft of places to plug in my phone to the infotainment system. Thanks to wireless charging, not only was the phone charged, but I also had Google Map directions.
You may be mistaken for thinking that this is Ladakh, but it isn't. We are still in the US of A, and with us are the Volkswagen Taiguns, which have come all the way from India. We've been driving with them, and this is the final stop on our journey with the Taiguns in the US. This is the Death Valley, and it is famous for being lower than the sea level as well as being rugged just like Ladakh.
The mind-boggling thing about Death Valley is not that it reaches some of the highest temperatures ever recorded in the world, but that while Ladakh sits at over 10,000 feet above sea level, most of Death Valley is below sea level, with points as low as 300 feet below the level of the sea. This is a great area for driving, with some mountain sections and many straight roads, and all but devoid of traffic. But that is also a problem, as getting stranded here would mean one is at the mercy of the next car whenever that comes, as there is no mobile network in the area. Places to have food are also hard to find, with there being just a handful of options, with some of the restaurants not even open for lunch. We stopped at the resurrected village of Stovepipe Wells that was established in 1926, and we had a typical American meal of burgers with lemonade in the saloon of the village. While it was simple getting into Death Valley, getting out of it was tough work, especially for the SUV that I was driving. Frequent downshifts were required as the road snaked its way up from below sea level to the surrounding peaks as we made our way southwest back towards Los Angeles. The one big drawback of driving the Indian-made cars in the US is that they still have the continuous beep when they cross 120 kilometers per hour. A safety feature relevant in India, but not so much in the US of A. In all, we drove over 2,500 kilometers with the Taiguns, and they performed without any problems. That we went from the San Fernando Valley to some of nature's most astounding sights at the Grand Canyon National Park and the Death Valley, with a stopover in between to get dazzled by the glitz of Las Vegas, wasn't the highlight of our drive. But the two cars that we took on this journey definitely were, and they were the cynosure of most eyes wherever we stopped. Because of course, nobody had seen cars with steering wheels on the right side. Because these were the only two Volkswagen Taigun SUVs in the whole of the United States of America. Or actually in the whole of North America, or in either of the Americas for that matter. In fact, these were the only two Volkswagen Taiguns on the roads outside of India.